welcome to another fantastic episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be talking to one of the leading influencers in the startup and venture world in Silicon Valley and India ecosystems. He's an influencer who can get over 1,000 likes on just one line of social media post. He's a king of memes. But hey, don't underestimate his expertise in technology and venture space. Today he is at JupiterOne, but probably one of the most networked investors in Silicon Valley. I would heartily welcome to Pitch Cafe with a lot of pride and excitement, Mr. Pramod Gosavi. Tell me, what are we going to talk about today? What is it that's on your mind, which you really want to share with the audience?
As we chatted briefly about PLG, so PLG was like a big rage, like I would say, like 2 to 3 years ago, particularly going into the whole sort of COVID ZERP phenomenon, right? So that has been a subject for me. I was thinking of writing something, but I'll probably do a post after this interview. Yeah, I think PLG is one of those that is very misunderstood, and for both good and bad reasons. I think people have realized what PLG is today compared to like 2 to 3 years ago. I feel like everyone jumped on that bandwagon. They thought PLG was some sort of a magic elixir that solved your go-to-market problem, growth problem. A lot of them, they over-invested and they eventually realized that doesn't work. Yeah, so would love to sort of chat about it, like where I think PLG is useful, where PLG is not useful, where it is most misunderstood.
Wonderful. So, for all the users wondering about the word PLG, PLG means product led growth. This is one of the hottest topics startups in Silicon Valley, especially in the B2B enterprise space, are adopting in their companies. Whenever you build a product, you feel to increase its adoption. The adoption metrics is what investors care most about. They think that PLG is the way to do it. So, Pramod is here to disrupt all those myths. So, Pramod, tell us, what is product led growth and what is the difference? And why do you think that it's not working in today's situation?
If you look at the technical definition of product-led growth, so that like think the product and led is the key. And there's a venture firm called OpenView that really did a lot of good work on product-led growth. So I would definitely recommend going and checking that venture's website. It's called OpenView Partners, and they have defined product-led growth to be so and so, and I can go through it. So there are multiple nuances of product-led growth, and I feel like over the years, it has got diluted quite a bit. Like, for example, they even talk about Snowflake as being a product-led growth, which is like totally ridiculous to me because it's not a product-led growth company also. But since Snowflake has this one offering that fits into the product-led growth criteria, they call it as a product-led growth, right? So I think over the time, product-led growth is being more like exploited rather than like sort of used properly. So going back to like what is product-led growth, right? So as I said, like product and led is the key. And the best example of that is really there's one category of product where it's a very natural fit, and to me that is still the purest product-led growth category, which is these products that have a natural network effects. For example, like think of this software that we're using, Riverside or Zoom. Say I buy this software and I invite you to the meeting. You are experiencing the product, and if you like it, you'll go buy it. And that's like a true product-led growth, which is the product is basically selling by itself through the network effects, right? And this is a very good example where you're not even like choosing to go to the website and doing a self-service or something. Like, someone is bringing the product to you and you're experiencing the product. So to me, this category of products that has network effect is like the purest category of product-led growth, where the product basically sells it for you, and also the growth happens through that. Like, so good examples of this is like Zoom, this Riverside, Dropbox is another good example, and then Calendly is another good example. Like if you send someone a calendar invite, they can experience the product. So anything where you are sharing the product with other people, they're being able to experience the product in an inorganic way. Like you never went out to learn about Calendly, but somebody shared Calendly with you, and that's how we actually ended up buying Calendly, is like that, right? So that is, I think, the purest category of product-led growth, which is the products that have true network effects, that they spread by network, and as the network grows, the product basically sells by itself. And that is the whole point of product-led growth is the growth is happening through the product itself. So that is the most sort of purest category, I would say, is a product-led growth. There's another category that people have defined that also comes under product-led growth is a so traditionally how products sold like in an enterprise setting is, you have a salesperson, you have to call a salesperson, the salesperson will do a demo. You never got your hands on the product unless you did the demo and they gave you access to that. So the second category, like product-led growth, is about self-service. And we can talk a bit about that. To me, still, it's not a pure product-led growth. It's a self-service, but it can still be used as a product-led growth. But the dynamics are very different compared to like the first category that I talked about, where it has a natural network effects and the product sells by itself. Because even in a self-service scenario, uh, you have to lead the customers to your website. It's not a true product led, like people have to learn about your product, they had to have a pain point and they come to your website, right? So it's a little bit of a marketing led and then product driven. So I'll just take a pause here. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. So, Pramod, this was really good explanation for someone who did not know what product led means. But in the startup ecosystem today, if you look at incubators, accelerators, if you look at the top startup firms, they are spending a lot of time grooming founders on go to market strategy. And like you mentioned, a couple of years ago, product led growth was one of the most preferred go to market strategies. Now, tell me why it is not working today. I know you mentioned the example of Snowflake, but also you've given examples of Zoom and you talked about Riverside and Calendly and Dropbox. But tell me what is failing with product led? Because I interact with people who work in the enterprise space where an enterprise product has very long sales cycle, number one. Second thing is this does not really have a proper user interface per se. You're dealing inside system with complex technology. And do you think product led works there, or is this the right go to market strategy to hype about? What's going on there? Why is it not working today?
Yeah, so it's mainly not working, I think, because people are not understanding the nuance. Like the first important word in the PLG is product, right? So that has been my most favorite pet peeve is not all products are suitable for product-led growth. So, like for example, like Snowflake is not product-led growth. Like it's a enterprise data system. Somebody just cannot buy the product by itself, and the product cannot sell by itself.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, every product doesn't need to sell itself. As long as the user has got good experience, the metrics surrounding the usage of the product are good, or there are good KPIs, you don't really have to recommend something. If let's say you have a $10 million product which does not have a great PLG side to it, but it's doing the job, then do you really need a product led approach for that product? Because it's doing the job, and it doesn't need to have the product led funnel, right?
So there are two aspects to it. Like I think let's just start from the growth side. So the product-led growth right now, to me, like product-led growth is really on the growth side. But it over the years it has been like sort of diluted and it involves other part of the journey, which is user acquisition, expansion, connection, and all of that, right? So for a minute, let's just think about the growth side of thing, right? Let's just say, so I'll give you a good example on the cybersecurity side. Sneak is a very good example. It's one of my favorite companies. They created a really nice product for developers. It's an open source product. It's free to use. The developers, they download the product. It has some virality because one developer starts using it, and it actually helps the developer themselves to clean up the open source. So one developer uses it, the developer goes and talks to other people, and then soon it just spreads virality because it's the same problem faced by everyone. And also I think we'll come back to the community also. The community and the customer segment is very important. Is like in case of a Zoom, you're sharing, and that's how it's spreading. In case of developers, the developers talk to each other, and if they like a product, they'll tell other people, right? So it's a little bit about a community. So they did a really good job of selling to developers, free open source. It spread like wildfire, millions of developers. And then they now think about a growth and monetization, right? So
Correct.
so let's think of a company where there are 2,000 developers. Let's say it spreads like wildfire. About 400, 500, 600 developers use the product. Other developers are still lagging behind. They don't see the need for it. So this is a good nuance where the products spread by itself, the usage spread by itself, but after a while it hits a wall. So
Yeah.
it hits a wall both in terms of the usage, and it
Yeah.
hits the wall in terms of monetization. So for example, even if 300, 400 people are using it, and the reason people are using it because it's free and it's open source, that they don't have to pay, they don't have to go get a budget or something. Now, if you're a company like Sneak and you have raised a lot of money and you want to get revenue, you go back to the developers and say, hey, pay for it. And the developers are like, wait a minute, I thought this was free. Like you were you were,
Yeah.
were preaching free open source. We started using this. What do you mean? And they don't pay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is where I think a lot of companies got it wrong. They thought that we make it open source, we make it free, we get a lot of developers hooked onto it, and then they'll start paying, right?
Wow.
And this is the biggest reason why we got it wrong, is the monetization from like that free open source to pay did not work out. So what does a company like Sneak do? They go and hire a lot of salespeople. They go to this company and say, hey, a lot of your developers are using it. Now,
Yeah.
why don't we do like enterprise licensing? But to me, that's not a product-led growth. That is, now you're doing enterprise sales. So now what is product-led growth in this? Like what the free and open source did, it is created a top-down funnel, right? So now
Correct.
it's more of a top-down funnel. So I think today in 2024, like compared to like say 2021, most people are agreeing that PLG is good for top of the funnel, right? And it is more of a go-to-market tactic that works for some products and doesn't work for all the products. And even the product that it works, it's not a natural growth story. Like it's a top of the funnel story. But there's some products that can still sell by itself. Like
Top of the funnel means you're getting large number of people to use it, and then totally, and they you start trickling down the paid ones. The
yes,
paid customers. Okay, I see. So it's kind of like a freemium model, which is working, and then it doesn't, help with the long term. The CAC becomes extremely expensive, right? The cost becomes expensive because you're serving all these years, and they suddenly walk out without paying, right?
I think where people got it wrong, they said like, hey, if I just go and give it away for free, open source, freemium, whatever you want to call it, people will start paying. I think that conversion to paid was not very clear. And again, you have to do something very different for customers to start paying, right? So either you force the payment earlier on where you make it like a 1 month trial, 3 month trial, or you, like some of these companies thought that the more we get these guys pregnant, like let them use it for a year, 2 year, and then eventually we'll go and sell. That thing
Yeah.
didn't happen. It does
Yeah.
happen in some cases because people do get pregnant, they get used to the product, they have workflows on top of it.
Yeah.
So I think where I think people are now sort of agreeing is it's an extremely good sort of a top of funnel product.
Yeah.
It can be like it can also be a monetization, but the monetization is not clear. And also it's a chicken and egg problem. It depending on how you use it as a top of funnel, like I said, like if you just give it away for free indefinitely, the monetization is slower. If you force
Yeah.
it very early on, the monetization will be smaller because people are not like pregnant with the product.
Yeah, as you were talking about this, I just felt, is there a new way, new terminology we can introduce for this variant of product-led growth, which works very well in top of the funnel, so that we can clear the misconception of the, all the hype around product-led growth? Is there a way to rephrase it? Can we say something? Should we say top of the funnel product-led growth, or what can we call it?
Um, I think I like to call it as two strategies actually.
Mm-hmm.
So one is sort of a product-led customer acquisition, and the second one, like a typical sort of a sales-led customer acquisition. So like one of my companies like did a really good job. So they actually had two different go to market. One was the product led growth, where they created a freemium for small companies to come and do it on by own, and then they had like a sales led growth for the large companies.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually they thought they can get this for free, cheap, and then as they grow up, they can actually come back with the enterprise sales. So that was a really smart thing, and I actually recommend founders to do that, is to create some sort of a self-service, some sort of a freemium opportunity for customers to get their hands on it,
Yeah.
but don't think that it's magically going to get converted. And the other
Right.
thing I think people also misunderstand is the customer success, right? So some products are
Yes.
simple, easy to use, and if you really need to grow also, you need to do some customer success where you need to enable the customers to do more and more. I mean, that's one of the reasons. So, like a true product-led growth. So people are investing a lot. So there are a bunch of companies that are doing like a CRM stack for product-led growth, where they are looking at how much people use. That is all nice. Like there are just like some data, but there's no magic elixir where they say like, hey, this guy has been using this product for 3 or 4 months. He used it in a particular way. Now is a good time to go and upsell that product. I think that magic thing doesn't exist at all. Like if you try to sort of come up with some sort of a formula to do that. So I think people have over invested in this whole sort of a PLG stack that you talk about, like their
Yeah.
companies do it.
Yeah.
I think
Mm-hmm.
we are over invested in that. I think people are realizing that. But using PLG very smartly, capturing data through some of your tools like Amplitude and others, where you're logging some of the usage, and then also seconding that with a customer success team that reaches out to the customers and makes sure that they're getting the best benefit of it. So that's where I think we are landing up on the PLG, is to make a very conscious decision, like whether you want to do freemium open source,
Yeah.
and use that as a top of the funnel. And the other thing I think I didn't like a favorite thing of mine to talk is not all products are PLG friendly. Like there's some
Yeah.
products that just needs to be sold. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is also, when do you start PLG? So I'll
Yeah.
just take a breather, but that is another second topic that I want to focus on, is when do you do PLG? Like I have a bit of contrarian views on that.
So, Pramod, you just mentioned that you have contrarian views on when PLG should be adopted. Can you talk a little bit about that? What does it mean to the founder who's currently spending a lot of time and effort designing a PLG strategy for a startup? Let's say he's a pre-series A startup founder, or what is your advice? What do you think is a contrarian view they could benefit from?
Yes, so that too sort of thinking right now is a lot of technical founders who don't have go-to-market expertise. They read like open views like PLG, and they say, hey, maybe we should do PLG. We don't need to hire people.
Yeah,
We're still ready.
yeah, just hold that thought. Why do you say only technical founders? Why not non-technical founders?
I mean, we see that more prevalent with technical, because somebody who has go-to-market experience, they know what works, what does not work. So that's the thing with startups. Founders are coming from different backgrounds. A lot of them don't have any sort of go-to-market thing. They go and like literally they just go and start learning sales online, and when they learn sales online, they come across OpenView and they say, oh, like OpenView talks about how successful PLG can be. Let me try PLG, right? So
Right.
yeah, so on the contrarian part is like PLG is not good at all at a very early stage, like when you're doing like
Mhm.
a seed, when you just have a product, right? It
Mhm.
does work. Like ChatGPT is a very good example. Like they just put it out there and it just like became viral. It is possible. It is possible in B2C product. Like in B2B product, I would still have it, but I would not rely on this at all,
Yes.
because like I said, unless
Yeah.
you have a natural sort of a network effect, you still have to lead people to your website and all of that stuff. So you still have to marketing to do. And also it sometimes backfires because people make impression of your product, it's not there, right? So at a pre-seed seed level, I always recommend to do direct. So go to the customers, figure out the product, figure out what they like, what they not like.
Right.
And then at a series A, series B level, while you're scaling go to market, make a conscious decision about the product, saying, hey, I'm going to make this simple self-service product for top of the funnel. Or you can also make it for a different customer segment, saying, hey, this segment, they can use it self-service. But I want to really highlight one thing that is very, very problematic with product-led growth is, so people do all of those things, right? Like, let's just say you have good investors, good people who are advising you. You go and do this direct go to market. You get your a little bit of product market fit, a few customers and everything. And then you are just like, okay, this is working. Let me go hire another 10 more salespeople and then I can expand it. I think
Yeah.
where I've seen people make mistake is that go to market doesn't work sometimes because,
Yeah.
you might have some niche segment that you sold to, but you're not able to sell. And that the problem can be in the product, that problem can be messaging, that problem can be in the go to market execution.
Yeah.
So then some people, they're like, oh, this is very expensive, this is not working, let's just go back to PLG.
Yeah.
And that is where I feel like a lot of people have made these mistakes is they direct go to market is not working. There's really some problem with your product and everything, or the people that you're hiring. Like even after going there, if it's not working. So people, what they say is like, look, this is very expensive, this is not working, let's just go and do PLG. Let's just start doing freemium, open source, and then let's just go back to the top of the funnel and create a top of the funnel to make it thing. I think that's where I feel like gravest mistake is done, is to fall back on PLG as an alternative go-to-market strategy at a later stage.
Mm-hmm.
And the problems with that is like your product might not be ready for PLG, right? Because you didn't think about it. And the
Earlier.
problem and the product
Yeah.
itself might have problem because it's not selling direct. So you need to still fix that. So some companies, some founders, they go back to PLG as a way to cut down their sales cost. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, again, it doesn't work out because the PLG takes a long time to monetize. So
So
you'll still
Pramod, I had one question when you're explaining this concept. Let's say I want to adopt PLG as a startup when I'm in Series A. Does that mean that I should be thinking about designing my product for PLG from the day one? Should I have that in my mind? Or can I start thinking about it when I past the seed stage? What is the right way to be ready for PLG? Let's say I'll never use PLG. Let's say I'm a startup who benefited a lot by direct sales and I'm just going to be successful that way. But should I still have a plan to be ready for PLG? Is it a good practice for all founders?
yes. And I think that sweet spot is, I would say, is around Series A. Like from seed to Series A, you try to do a lot of direct sales, get like those direct customers, make them successful, figure out what's working, what's not working. And at a Series A stage, you can start thinking of as a very conscious go-to-market effort, targeting either a customer segment as a top of the funnel. And the other thing is also, I think, one of the misunderstanding that people have is like PLG is free. So, you just put a product out there and it sells by
Yeah,
itself. And it does
yeah,
sell by itself for certain product, but for most product, it doesn't sell by itself. So you need to back it up with digital marketing. So you need to get people to the website. You need to do events. You need to go to conferences so people hear
right,
about it, go to your website.
right.
And also you need to invest in making the product like really self-serve, like totally hands-off. Like, so you'll have to do a lot of integrations, all
Yeah.
of that stuff.
So between seed and series A is the time when your product management, sales team, marketing team, they huddle together and start thinking about it. Is that a good time to think? Or should this have thought about it before, maybe in pre-seed stage or earlier?
No, I think initially you still should get a few direct customers to just try the product, right? Just putting it like so self-serve and having, I think it does work for some product, like, like a true open source, like database products where if you have a community where people can find out about the product by themselves and say you're like a thought leader or you're a well-known person in that field, where people will come and discover the product. Yeah, it's okay to do it at that stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. On that note, I want to keep digging, but I know your time is valuable, but I'll quickly come to a couple of other topics. You were recently at the Montgomery Summit. I love your posts. I've been following them for many months now. You're one of the prominent social media influencers on LinkedIn in the B2B enterprise space, especially investors and founders get lots of insights. You mentioned about the trends in generative AI. This is the age of generative AI, and people are switching to Gen AI tools not only in enterprise but also in B2C. Tell us what were your top three findings, which were kind of surprising. There's a lot of hype about generative AI, about GPTs and LLMs, and you went there and you brought in some counterintuitive insights. You talked about rags. Tell us what is it like out there. I know you're a PLG expert, but what is your take on the happenings in the Gen AI space?
I went there to really get a pulse on the market. I attended a bunch of company presentations. So these are companies that have raised Series A, Series B, Series C. So these guys are like further along and working with customers, right? So I wanted to understand where that adoption is. I think the biggest surprise to me was that people were not talking about real use cases at all. Like they were showcasing that, hey, we have this customer that went into production. This is what they are working on. Everybody was just talking about, hey, these are the use cases that we are targeting. We have some POCs going on, but nobody really talked about something that went live and what kind of results they're getting. So that was the biggest surprise to me. Like what I wanted to see is just like, hey, we have this customer that went into production. Uh, they're saving like so much cost and like so productivity. There's some companies that have shared, but this vendor that I went to, like nobody shared. Came from that conference thinking that we are still very early, or maybe I just attended the wrong company's presentation. But I was surprised that we are still very, very early. We are building a lot of like software right now, and it's going to be helpful long term, but we are still very early.
Correct
Uh,
me if I'm wrong. Is all the money going into the infrastructure, like the hardware chips, the infrastructure supporting LLMs? Is that where all the money is going right now? Or are there, like, because Gen AI products in enterprise take a lot of resources. They
yeah.
take time, they take a lot of compute, and every month you have to bear expenses to maintain this mammoth of an application and train it on your customized enterprise data, and it can hallucinate. There is a ton of explainability and observability issues you have to deal with. There's a lot more going around in the security space as well. So, and the data management, who owns the data problem. So, how is this panning out? I feel it's too early. LLMs are being hyped, but I saw this with crypto also, and this happened with Hadoop. This happened with a bunch of things. What do you think is happening with Gen AI? Are we too early there?
Yes, I think compared to like big data and Hadoop, that was like a technology looking for a problem to solve, right? I think Gen
Correct.
AI is real sort of solution. I think people are misunderstanding like how long it takes to productize this
Correct.
application.
Correct.
So ChatGPT works really well. People are happy with it, and now when they start using it, they start seeing hallucination. They see that the query performance is not very
Yes.
predictable. Uh,
Yes.
so I think counter to that, I think like you mentioned about like the spending, right? So I think the people who are spending a lot of time on the on the foundation model, I think they should spend the money to make the models like more and more higher quality. But I feel
Right.
like when people are spending a lot of time on the tools, raising a lot of money, I think that's not very good right now because the adoption is just going to take its own time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So some of these companies I saw they have raised like Series A, Series B, like at a very high valuations,
Yeah.
like and the customers are not there, like the productions are not there, the pain points are not there. So I think the timing issue is going to be very, very important. And I
Yeah.
feel like some of the startups will not make it because of timing issue, like just going from POCs to production. So my advice is really like to the startups is like, hey, you raise all of this money, but just don't spend it, because you cannot really predict or control the production side of the
Yeah.
house.
Wonderful. So, so Pramod, I get very overwhelmed when I get these updates. There was an update about Claude, Claude 3, Anthropic's latest release. It has three versions. And last week, some other company was a hero. Today it's Anthropic. Last week it was Figure AI. They did multimodal AI. They've launched those robots. And before that, some other company was a hero. Let's say Facebook launched some new feature. This is so quick and so beyond comprehension. There are players in Europe. Mixtral AI is doing a lot of work. How do you keep yourself grounded? You're an investor, your job is to keep track of this and then make a decision where to invest, which startup to bet on. What keeps you grounded? What keeps you sane in this overwhelming space? What keeps you sane?
Yeah, I think the space is changing quite a bit, like very, very fast. So yeah, so I think I read a lot. Like I subscribe to a bunch of newsletter, and I follow Twitter quite a bit. So I think that the space is changing very, very fast. But also I think as an investor, you still like in this space, you have to keep like some years on the road and the market, right? Like where is that option coming? So if you just talk to vendors right now, they're just hyping it up, saying, "Hey, we have like POCs, we are doing this." But I would recommend investors and everybody to talk to the customers, like really figure out like where are they in that option, right?
So, yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So you want to talk, you want to be on the ground and talk to people, get a sense of it, and then you make your decisions. Wonderful, amazing. So one last secret I want us. I want you to share it with me. How do you make viral posts on LinkedIn? You're so good at making memes, and for so many months I read. I'm not really an expert in the venture space, the B2B enterprise space, but after reading your posts, I've come to a level where I can interview people, I can direct startups to do certain things, and it's working like magic. So what is your secret? How do you create amazing LinkedIn posts? You have to share it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the funny thing is the posts that go viral, I actually have no idea why they go viral, because that. So there are posts that I work on it for days and weeks, and I feel like this is really nice and good, but then it doesn't work out. So right now, what I do is I just don't think about it. I just put it out there and see if it like sticks. And if it doesn't stick, I actually delete a lot of memes actually. So yeah,
Wonderful.
I think I have no control like what people like, where they're coming from. So to me right now, like whatever I feel like. And the other thing I think a lot of people don't get it is like the best stuff that goes viral actually takes only like 30-40 seconds actually to come up with. Like the more time I spend on it, it doesn't mean that it will actually go viral. Like again, I think this is the beauty of social media, is just you cannot
Yeah.
control virality.
Wonderful. So I feel you write consistently, you're insightful and adding value consistently, and you educate people consistently. For me, that's why I like your posts, and I feel for you, according to you, it's more whatever is spontaneous from your heart. That is what is going viral. 30 to 40 second, whatever you felt from your heart, looks like that's going viral. So Pramod, thank you so much for the past half hour or so you've spent with me and the Pitch Cafe production team here. Thank you so much. We learned a lot. Any last thoughts as a guidance for founders? Many founders are watching my podcast and they're connecting with investors and pitching to me. What is your advice to the founders?
Yeah, just as a last advice, like there's a lot of good and bad advice on the internet, and a lot of times the good advice, particularly, it tends to be around success, right? So these are like very cherry picked successes, right? If you talk about PLG, they'll talk about a few companies that did really well. So I would say, like read all of that stuff, but finally come back to your product and your customer segment and see if it's really helpful, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'll also supplement that with sort of talking to real sort of people on the field, like talk to people who have done this before, right? So the more you sort of ground yourself by getting some multiple inputs on the topic, do that.
Yeah.
Like you go to like one website and the website says, hey, PLG is the best go to market strategy. I think that's not going to be good for you.
Do you have a sense for who's a good founder? I have a gut feeling. Like, I see their track record, of course, and their pedigree, and if they've done good work in the past, if they've been in the same space. These are all things I see when I forward profiles to investors. But what is the most striking feature for you when you pick a good founder? You're like, hey, this is a good founder. How do you know that?
Yeah, I think I think over the years I've realized what makes a good founder, and it's very counterintuitive actually. The best founder is actually not somebody who is like amazing go-to-market person, amazing product person. Actually, the best founder is somebody who's very self-aware. So self-aware is just understanding what you're good at, what you're not good at. So I would say like
Yeah.
self-aware is number one. Number two thing that I look for right now is growth mentality. Growth is just like being able to grow and learn and adapt
Yeah.
along. Like if you come in with sort of very fixed thoughts, very
Yeah.
not able to sort of listen and adapt. So those are the two
Yeah.
things most I look for. Is people say like, oh, look for a product person and go to market person. I'm looking for a
Yes.
self-aware and a growth person.
Wonderful, wonderful. On that note, very reluctantly, I have to end such an amazing podcast. I learned so much on counterintuitive insights of PLG adoption, where PLG and when PLG should be adopted. And you gave me great insights on what a good founder is and a good founder is not. And most importantly, how to tap into the Gen AI trend, both the founders and investors, very safely. Amazing, insightful conversation. Pramod, thank you so much for joining us. And please come back again.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot for having me.